Welcome to Dub Life Diaries, the podcast where passion meets the open road. I'm Joe Person, your host, and also a lifelong dubber. Buckle up, because this ride is just beginning. This podcast is sponsored by Volksmania Magazine. Good times, great cars, awesome Volksmaniacs. Visit Volksmania.com to learn more about this class-leading VW magazine. VW fam, buckle up, because today's guest is the definition of passion, of precision, and of pure dub life dedication. He's an electrical engineer. He's a builder. He's a storyteller. He's a dude who turned a rusty dream into a magazine-worthy masterpiece. From spinning wrenches in college dorms to reviving his VW soul with his 64 ragtop named Sky, Scott Pfeiffer's journey is nothing short of legendary. This is a man who actually broke his back, and I mean that literally, broke his back, and still came back to finish the build. Still came back. You see what I did there? A guy who's chased down bumper guards from Poland, who's rewired an entire car by hand. He's certainly not afraid to say that stock is history, that custom is the future of our imagination. Featured in Volksmania Magazine, praised at shows all across Texas, and driven by pure air-cooled obsession. Ladies and gentlemen, turn the volume up and welcome to the podcast, Mr. Scott Pfeiffer. What's up, man?
I'm going pretty well. How's your day?
Going pretty good. I've had a busy one. Before we jump into some questions, I just like to always give a shout out to a few of my sponsors. First one, Volksmania Magazine. If you have not checked out this publication yet, you are missing out. Best magazine, I feel, that covers VWs on the planet. If you do end up signing up, U.S. subscribers, make sure you use DubLife10. That's DUBLIFE, the number 1, the number 0, at checkout for 10% off your subscription. Also, shout out to Salty Dub. Born by the beach, built for the road. Salty Dub is all things events and VW swag. www.saltydub.com. Check those guys out. Last shout out is to my buddy Dino Styles, Dino's Garage, DC Metro, supporter of the podcast. Awesome guy if you're in that area. Everybody needs a good VW mechanic. All right, my friend, back to you. Thank you. Let's jump in here, man. Take me back to what first kind of sparked or pulled you into the VW world.
I did have a friend back in high school who had, I don't even remember what it was. I just remember it was blue. I think it was a Super Beetle. I remember driving around in that one until he got an 85 Z28 because he was one of those spoiled kids in high school. But I remember spinning that one through a ditch one day, and we just pushed it out of the ditch and spin, not roll. So, but it pushed it out of the ditch and kept going. It kept going. But really, what really got me into it, I had a German friend, guy whose parents were German military and came over to the States to be stationed, and he was in high school with me. And I had lived in Germany before, so he and I kind of hit it off, and I spoke German, so we would speak German to each other. But he got it was a Baja, but it was built on a Super Beetle, and it was already built when he bought it.
Okay.
He got questioned all the time where he got the Super Beetle Baja kit, and never did find out. But it was also a convertible, and I remember the whoever put on the convertible top, it never cut out the rear window. So when you put up the top, you had no rear window. No, it was a cool little car, but it was just a stock motor in it when he got it. And I remember we pulled the motor out, and he was going to build a 1641. His dad was a pretty good mechanic, and I was a terrible mechanic at that time. So he kind of taught me some things. But we pulled the motor out, and he was building the new one. The long block was sitting there, and I just started taking it apart, and it was just fascinating to me that how easy it was, and so few bolts to take it apart, and then you're all into it. And so it was such a simple design and so easy to comprehend how all that worked together. The crankshaft to the cam to the everything. It was just really interesting to me, and I guess I was hooked from there. So
okay, so that all kind of tied together. What would you say were some of the biggest lessons that you were taught from that first 1641 rebuild?
It was just again how easy it was because
Yeah.
it I'd always I always liked cars, but all the stuff you would see, you'd see engine hoists and pulling things apart, and still V8s and things. Still, I love them, but I they scare me. I wouldn't want to. I would never think about tearing apart a V8 the way I can a VW motor. But it's just the ease of the entire car to take it apart and redo it. Even if you're pulling apart taking the front beam off and putting on a different beam, all of that, everything is just seems like four bolts, and you can add pretty much anything on the car part, whether it's pulling the motor or pulling the front beam or everything seems to be four bolts, and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You had mentioned in some of your bio and story the 68 Bug with the scat interior. This was, I think, one that you rebuilt in college?
Yeah, so I bought it after he got the convertible, that Baja.
Okay.
I wanted one of my own, so I bought the 68 from a guy he had
Was this
he
the
had done
first
the
one for you?
interior.
Was this your
That
first
was my very first one.
Okay.
It's my only other one, actually. I've only had the two. I've had the 68 and then the 64. So
Okay.
I'm not one of these typical VWs that just goes through all kinds of them. I tend to keep them. I mean, I've had this one for 20. The 64 I've had for 20 years now.
Oh, man, that's awesome. I wish I had some of mine from
Yeah,
high school, etc. I didn't keep them.
yeah,
Yeah, I just didn't.
yeah. I wish I'd still had the 68, but yeah. So I bought it, and it was somewhat done. It was still stock height, stock brakes. Did have it was 1600, but it was running dual 36 Delordos. The interior had been done with the scat, the gray velour, lovely 80s fashion, but it looked cool, especially since that was the 80s. So I dug that part. It had one of those long mirrors that had like five. I don't even know what they were called, but they were an 80s thing too. Had like five mirrors on the rearview mirror.
Yeah, no
Had one
blind
of those
spot.
mounted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The no
Yeah.
blind
Yeah.
spot mirror.
Uh-huh. And then the multicolored locomotion sticker on the back window, all those
Oh,
things
cool,
that
man.
were
Yeah,
80s
80
fads.
for sure.
Uh
Hot
yeah.
tuna. Yeah, hot bright
Uh-huh.
colors. Yep.
Exactly. But it needed some work. After I got into it a little bit, I wanted to redo some things. It needed floor pans. So I started getting into that part. Took it and was having the floor pans done. It was at a place that did paint and body also. So they offered to paint it for me because it was showing some age at that point. So I had it repainted. I think it was like in a 1992 Mazda Miata blue. So it was a very a darker blue than what my current car is, but bright blue.
Yeah.
And I think the entire uh, paint job and floor pans cost me like $1,800. So it was
I
a step
wish.
above Earl Scheib, but not much. So,
Yeah, that'd be
and
fantastic these
then
days.
we were yes, exactly. So I wanted a bigger motor, and I was going to school at the time. I went to Auburn University, which is about 3 hours, 3.5 hours from where I lived at the time in Alabama. But I
Dude,
wanted a bigger motor,
I
so
got some Alabama stories. I spent some
uh-oh,
time, yeah,
scary.
I spent some time there. I spent 5 years there. I worked for an HVAC company there. I was their
Uh,
sales manager. Yeah, right in, like, the heart of
uh,
Alabama, which was Montgomery.
yeah, okay.
We
Well,
were
that's right around the corner from Auburn. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's why I brought that up. So here's my story, and then I'm gonna shut up, and it's back to you. When I first moved there, I got sent away from my company to training, and I went through Atlanta, Hartsfield, and then went out to Texas. And on the way back, we connected in Atlanta and went on to Montgomery. Well, when we got to Atlanta, I noticed, man, there's like, a whole bunch of flights, like two even, that would get me there a lot faster than the one I've got to wait for at like 8:30 p.m. tonight. It was like noon, right? So, long story short, I approached the counter. There's a chick standing there. I approached the counter and I said, "Hey, been gone all week. I'm excited to see I got a young family, ready to get home. I noticed there's two flights that get me back to Montgomery before this one I'm on. Is there any chance I can change my ticket and get on an earlier flight?" No bullshit. Here's what she told me. I don't know. That depends. Auburn or Alabama? I went, okay.
Uh-huh.
I see where this is headed. Y'all take this pretty serious. It's like,
Uh-huh.
it's
Yep.
almost like a biblical term in the South, especially in Alabama, to be on one side of that fence or the other. So, I'll sum it up here. She said Auburn first, Auburn or Alabama. And so because she said Auburn first, I was like, well, I'm gonna try some psychology here. She said that right. So I'm gonna say that's the team, even though I didn't pick one. I'm a Florida guy, Florida Gators, that's but anyhow, she told me no. I said Auburn. She goes, nope, wrong answer. Flight's full. And guess what, man? I didn't get on the flight. I'm not joking. I didn't get on the flight. I waited the whole day, what felt like a whole day in the airport to wait to
That's funny.
Yeah.
I wonder
So
if you actually would have had you said Alabama.
probably. So, yeah, that's my
Interesting.
story.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
tell
dude.
people that being here in Dallas, everybody's Cowboys fans, not me, but I'm a pro guy. I'm a college guy more than pro. But people always say you talk about football teams, and I'm like, well, in Alabama, there's only two,
That's right.
and you either have a best friend or an enemy, depending on which one you choose.
You ain't lying.
So,
Yeah, that's funny, man.
and the Cowboys isn't the answer, not even close.
No, I've got a little bit of time I've spent in Dallas, really more Fort Worth. Actually, Hurst is where
Mhm.
this training facility was, where I was teaching some classes, some sales classes. But downtown Fort Worth, there's a barbecue joint called Heim, Heim, Heim Barbecue.
Mhm.
They have bacon burnt ends. They're like probably some of the
Oh
best
wow,
I've ever had, and they have a green
nice.
chili mac and cheese that's fire. So that's out there near you. Check that spot out if you never have.
I'll have to write that down after we're done and
Yeah,
check
dude.
it out. I'm always looking for good barbecue.
Yes, me too, man. Me too. I'm like a connoisseur. I try to, I do a lot of cooking myself and I barbecue a lot myself, but I don't care who you are. If you didn't grow up in Texas, you can't cook like Texas. Texas just has barbecue figured out, and I look forward to
Hmm.
coming every time. I still come to Austin several times a year with the company I'm with now. Okay, sorry, man. Back to you. Back to you.
Yeah, that's all right.
So,
That's all right. No, it was we were talking about the '68
yeah,
and the motor. I we bought a long block for it that. And I was an idiot and was looking for the long block for the cheapest cost, and I found it. And unfortunately, I learned real quick why so many people. At that point, I didn't realize that Gex had such a bad name. But since then, and being in the VW world a lot more often, I can't believe they're still around. I mean, you don't see their advertising anymore, but you can search for them, and they're still there and still evidently building motors. But I got a long block from them in 1835, and I think that thing made it two trips between Huntsville, where my parents lived, and Auburn was about 3.5 hours. And second trip back to school or so, and it fell apart. I mean, the rocker arm just blew apart. It just gone. I mean, it was just ridiculous stuff. Now, that having worked on them so much more since then, I don't know how they managed to screw that up so bad, but they did. So, and then the car sat for a while. I didn't have the money anymore, and I was finishing up school.
yeah,
And then after I graduated, I moved out to Texas and got
yeah,
married and started
yeah,
a family. And it just the '68 sat there. My parents built a house outside of Alabama, and it had a big storage area. So the car sat there in storage forever. I always wanted to get back to it, but then she's now my ex-wife, but she wasn't into old cars or the VW scene at all. So it sat and sat and sat. My parents finally, they were never pressuring me. They had plenty of room for it, so it wasn't a big deal. But somebody was doing some work for them at the house and saw it and made a decent offer for it. They considered it had no motor in it, and I'd torn out the interior and stored it away to keep mice out of it.
yeah.
So it was pretty much just a shell, and then he got the interior, the old interior also. I don't remember what year that was. That was probably around 2000 or so, somewhere in there. Yeah, he made a decent offer on it, so I let it go. And I don't know. It was some years after that, I got divorced and finally ended up with another one, which is a whole other story that I talk about in the magazines, and you're
Yeah, is
probably
that
going to ask about it too. So
yeah, it seems like that's where we're at in the timeline.
yeah,
Was that the blue 66 that was in the parking garage?
So a friend of mine, well, good friend of mine now, but at the time he was a coworker, who was working in Nortel, in the telecom industry, which I've been in since I got out of school. But I kept seeing this convertible 66 on it out in the parking garage. He didn't drive it all too often, but every now and then it was there. And I finally tracked him down, and Marty and I had been friends ever since. But then after I got divorced, I was talking about wanting another VW, and I'd always wanted. There was a guy back in Huntsville who was like the guru VW guy. Everybody had that guru VW guy, especially
Yeah,
back in the
yeah.
80s. He had a Bug, and then he actually moved it into a Gia later. But he had a 2110 in it, and he would just eat everybody's, just kill them drag racing all the time, street racing, of course, back then. So not that I condone street racing, but hey, he would just he would eat everybody with that car. So I always 2110 always stuck in my head. And then I always wanted a ragtop. I had another friend who had a Shell that was a ragtop, and the first time I saw that, I was like, oh man, ragtop is just the coolest thing ever. Even for me, it was even better than a convertible for me for some reason. The ragtop just always appealed to me. So I was talking to Marty, and I was like, I really want a ragtop Bug, and I want a 2110. And really, that was about all I really said to him. A couple of days later, he sent me an ad off of the Samba, and it was this car, and it was down in Austin, and we drove down there one day and started ordering parts for it because I knew a little bit about the car, because he was the VW guy that was in the scene throughout Texas. So some people knew the car, and so I got a little bit of an idea of what it had, and I knew it needed brakes and stuff. So I started buying disc brake kits for it and all that kind of stuff, even before I bought it. But
Yeah.
knowing that even if I didn't buy that one, I was gonna buy a Bug, and it was gonna be a pre-68 this time. I really wanted something that was an earlier. Like I said, I wanted a ragtop, and these days now I know that that would be a 63 and earlier. Then I didn't realize that a 64 was not an original ragtop, but I wanted that kind of 63, even earlier. Wish I had bought an oval at the time, because now the cost of those are so much more expensive than I could have gotten one then 20 years ago.
Right.
But
I think about that in high school.
So
those ovals were they were not that cool.
and nobody cared.
Yeah. In 96, when I bought my first 72 Beetle, those 60s and 50s cars, nobody wanted to buy them. They were $2,500, $3,000.
Yep.
It's crazy. Yeah, I should have.
Yep.
We all should have.
Should have bought a bunch of them, right?
Yeah,
Split window
exactly.
buses at the same time. So
Yeah, no doubt.
But anyhow, we drove down to Austin one Saturday, and I test drove it, and the motor was really strong, and those Fuchses. And other than that, the car ran like crap. I mean, it was all over the road. The link pins and kingpins were shot, and the brakes were. They were drum brakes with the 2110. I don't know how he survived. He daily drove the thing, the guy I bought it from. I don't know how he survived, but we towed it back behind my truck, and the whole way back from Austin to Dallas, I'm watching the car swerving side to side, feeling the whole back end of my truck the whole way, because it would not stay straight in the lane. That's how bad the front end was.
Wow.
So we got it home. I took it straight to a guy and had him start working on it, and worked on it from there. Drove it for a long while. So when I had the brakes done, and it's something people tend to know, although I didn't at the time, is especially this was back 2005 or so. Right, there's a lot more companies doing disc brakes now, but back then the kits you would get, the fronts would normally be the Gia front disc brake kits, and then the rears would be kind of similar. CB Performance kind of had the whole setup with the drop spindles and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I got for it. But they add about an inch track on each side when you go to disc brakes, right? But so I still had a stock width beam, and then I added the inch track, and it was a lowered beam. So when I put the lowered spindles and then the lowered beam, even at the highest beam setting, the guy who put the brakes on called me and said, "Hey, you got a little fender brake issue." And I said, "Huh?" And he goes, "Yeah, your tires are hitting the fenders. Even as high up as that beam will go with the drop spindles, you're rubbing." So I had to go hunt down a 2-inch narrowed beam and take it back to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Now
we got a 2-inch narrowed beam.
Pretty common now because a lot of these guys, are putting 17, 18-inch wheels up underneath there.
Yeah.
Taking them off the Porsche. They're 7, 8, 9 inches wide. But yeah. So I want to talk about your back. I want to talk about this accident. Now, let me preface this with this. I got a super bad back. And over the years, I'm 47, even though I look 37. Just kidding. But really, my back's toast, man. I've had 2 surgeries. Now, I can't complain because I have never broken my back, so I'm interested in this story. But what I wanted to mention was I understand what back pain is. There's a lot of people that, don't understand heartburn. They've never had it a day in their life. They don't understand a headache. They've never had a headache, right? Dude, I've had back pain that's very, very, very serious. So I'm eagerly, I guess, interested in this story. Tell me what happened with your back. How'd you break it?
So I was in my attic in my house, and I was walking on the beams as I'd done many times before. I've wired up houses for Ethernet and all that kind of stuff, walking on beams. Never had a problem. I don't honestly remember exactly what happened. All I know is I fell off the beams, hit the sheetrock, and fell through. But where I was in the attic was a 2-story entryway of the house. So it was 2 stories straight down onto, basically some tile on top of cement. So they say, the doctor said that based on the way it burst, that it looked like I landed on my feet, and it just blew out my back. So I shattered L2. So your lumbar spine, you have 5 lumbar vertebrae. You might know a little more than other people since you have a bad back, but I shattered L2 and I fractured L1, tore into the spinal cord area, messed up so where L2 hits is where you have that thing, the horse's tail, called equinus, but the horse's tail is what ends the bottom of your spinal cord. That's where all your main nerves go out. I tore into it right there, and I actually severed one of those nerves. And based on the damage, they came out after the first surgery, and they went in and they put 2 rods up my back and stabilized me, and came out and told, it was my first wife still, and said he's not going to walk again. So, but
see, I got
luckily
no business
wrong,
complaining. I'm talking about my little.
Oh yeah, you do.
I don't have rods and
back.
stuff.
But I don't have the rods anymore. So
okay.
So they in recovery, I was already moving my legs, so they were wrong, luckily, but it took a while.
You're lucky you survived
recover.
That.
So
you felt 20 feet.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, dude. You're lucky you survived that for sure.
And just missed the banister to the stairwell also, because the banister for the stairs came right there. I just missed it, like 6-8 inches based on where I fell.
So I know you did.
Had I bounced off of that, probably be bad.
Absolutely. Just tell me how that felt after having the rods removed. Did it create more mobility for you? Did it feel weird to have that mobility back?
See, there was another surgery in between that, right? So they did the rods at first, and then L2 was, they called it pebbles, and they were originally going to go in a couple days later and take it out and put in a piece of donor bone in its place. but they knew it would mess up my left leg a little bit when they did it, but they didn't think I was going to walk, so they weren't worried about messing up my left leg. So when I was moving my legs, they gave me the option. They said, okay, we can go back in as planned and remove L2. They actually take a piece of somebody's tibia and put it in place, and then put a plate up my left side. And they said, we can do that now, or we can let you heal some, build up your strength again, and see how it goes. And hopefully maybe L2 will fuse and be a solid mass again. So about 3 months later, it wasn't. And my basically L1 and L3 were caving in to that L2 area that was just pebbles. So they had to go back in, and that's when they removed L2. They put in the piece of donor bone. They put a plate up my left side, and they did mess up my left leg a good bit, because they actually, one of the muscles in my left leg, the one that controls your hip movement side to side, it attaches right there between L1 and L3. So they had to peel it off and then put it back. And so it messed up my left leg a little bit. I still limp a little bit, especially when I'm tired. But
Dang, dude.
so that I now have a plate as well as the rods. And then a few years later, after all that fused together, they took out the rods. And they took out the rods because I could feel them in my back. And anytime the weather changed, I could feel them in my back. So I could still kind of predict the weather with it. It hurts more on rainy days than it does on sunny days. So, yeah.
Totally nuts and amazing at the same time, really. I mean,
Yeah.
and especially to hear somebody else that can talk about the back and understands the difference
Mm-hmm.
between cervical, thoracic, and lumbar, which,
Yeah, you learn a lot when you do that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
when you have the problems, you're right. You
Mm-hmm.
do. You learn a lot.
Yep.
I want to touch on
Yep.
the wiring job that you did. I know that you're an electrical engineer by degree, by trade, right? Did that
Mm-hmm.
help you at all in rewiring your car?
I mean, I say it didn't because it really,
It's not the same.
the degree is all theoretical, but yeah, it helps you with things like reading a wiring diagram. And when you get in, start doing LEDs, like my rear lights are all LED now, and to do LEDs, you really need to put in relays and have a steady 12-volt source back to the LEDs, so that it's not a variable source.
Is that
So
why
you
they
use
go real
relays.
fast when you put LED bulbs in?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, they can. Yeah, if you don't, it's so what a relay does, which is, I understand these things because of my degree, right? And a relay, you wire it up to the battery, let's say, directly. So the relay gets a voltage source into it, and then it sends out a steady voltage source out from it. So you'll get a steady 12 volts or somewhere thereabouts out of the relay that feeds the LEDs, so you don't get that flicker that you can get from a direct DC battery that can vary as your alternator's working or not working. That source can vary, and then that can vary the LED lights. So that's where you see that. So yeah, of course the degree helped a little bit, but I'd never wired a car before, so practically, no, it didn't. I had to learn all that, and I bought it's an American Auto Wire harness, so it's a real modern. It uses the modern spade fuses, not the little banana fuses that everybody's used to, and
yeah.
it's got built-in relays within the wiring harness and all that kind of stuff. And the diagram that came with it was supposed to be VW specific. Let me tell you, it was not. So I went hunting. I spent a lot of time on the Samba looking for people that had done American Auto Wire harnesses before. Found some sources that way. The Bentley manual was real helpful. Just took it one wiring at a time, one wire at a time. Work on the rear lights and one piece at a time, and fished it from the front to the back, and got it there eventually. And then in the magazine, I talk about the horn was actually one of my hardest. My horn never worked before, so I was determined to make my horn work. So
Me.
unfortunately, the way the horn works on a VW is when you push the button, it grounds it inside your steering column. It creates a ground, and that is what then your horn already has a 12-volt wire to it all the time. So then when you push the button, you create the ground, and that's what gives it a circuit so that the horn goes off. So the way with the American Auto wired fuse box, it's got a built-in relay in it for the horn signal. And so unfortunately, what I found out is I would hit the button and the horn would go, but then when I let the button off the button, the horn kept going.
Oh,
So it was, and you could turn off the car and turn it back on, and it was fine. But then you'd hit the button and the horn would go off and it would not come back on. It would just stay on. So what I found out was when you release the horn, it doesn't go to a completely open circuit. I would measure the resistance there within the steering column, and it didn't go to a complete open circuit. It still had a little bit of connectivity there. And I tried all kinds of things to get that to work that way, to where I was still using the horn circuit on the fuse box. I could never get that thing to go to a complete open circuit.
strange.
So I don't know why. I still can't explain it. But what I ended up doing was I got rid of I just used a regular 12-volt source. Right. So now I'm using a straight 12-volt source, not with the relay. And you hit the horn button, the horn beeps, and you let it off, it doesn't beep. So it's just a matter of not getting that open circuit back after you ground it. And I can't explain that one. I don't know why it doesn't completely open after you push the button.
Well, somebody's going to learn something off of that right there.
Hopefully,
Sure.
hopefully, maybe somebody knows how to fix that. I don't know. I
If they
tried
do,
replacing everything.
yeah, if they do that,
The only thing I didn't, yes, they tell them to put it on the Samba, because I searched
yeah,
and I could not find that one. So I replaced everything within the steering column except the column itself. Everything to try and isolate that to where I would get that open circuit. Nothing fixed it. So.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward just a little bit in your story, in your timeline, you team up with a guy named Josh. Is it Honnell?
Arnold, yeah,
Honnell.
he's
Okay. Let's
yeah.
let's talk about that. How that transpired and where that's at today.
So I got a set of the car when I bought it had the 2110 in it, and it's got had a set of 44 Webers on it, IDFs, and they're original Italian Webers. So they're pretty collectible, but they were in pretty rough shape. They needed to be gone through pretty good. So pretty much everything on them needed to be repaired or replaced. So I found out about Josh through Der Luftcoolers, my club here in Dallas, and he's a fellow member, and was told to go talk to him because he's kind of a carb guru. He's also a distributor guru, but he's pretty smart guy, and we're now really good friends. So he went through my carbs for me, did flow testing, replaced everything that needed to be replaced, got them all cleaned up where they looked pretty much brand new and worked like brand new, more importantly. And we got him on the car, and he actually has a dyno there he has a company called Air Cooled Dyno Works, and he does all this stuff for other people. It isn't cheap, but he's worth it. So
Yeah.
if you're in this area, I highly recommend Josh, not just because he's a great guy, but because he also knows what he's doing. So we ended up I had the long block built by Doug Krotz, another old guy. He's retired now here in the area. He built
Does Josh have social medias?
I mean, yeah, he's on Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. I have to look and see if Air Cooled Dyno Works has a website. I've actually never looked.
And
I just called Josh.
yeah. I just want to make sure we shout him out properly.
Yep. Definitely, Josh Honnell. He's actually been on Let's Talk Dubs podcast.
Oh yeah, cool.
Talking about distributors.
I've seen that
so
one.
He's been on.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has a old distributor machine. I forget what the heck it's called, but he can completely rehone and redo old distributors, 010s, 009s, all that stuff, and make them like new. And he knows his stuff with that too. So highly recommend him for anything you need done, but definitely carbs and distributors. He's the man.
So let's travel inside the car now. You did complete transformation of your interior too, right? Did you do all that work, or did you have that work done?
Not the seats. I didn't
Okay.
have the front seats and the rear seat. I had those done. I do know how to sew, and I was tempted to try to do my own seats for it. Also, I had a design in my head, so I saw this picture of an old 911, uh, and the way the seats looked, I just really liked the design of it. And they're still my old Scat seats because when I redid the car back in '05, when I first got it, I redid the interior and put Scat seats back in it. And they were the gray velour. This was 2005. But they were all the gray velour, and headliner was gray velour and everything. So, but they were the Scat Rally seats, which I love because I just love the way you sit in them and you don't move around. But I had those redone, but with the design in mind that I found of an old 911. So it got rid of the typical scat look and has a design that really is reminiscent of Porsche. The only thing I didn't do was do like a two-tone with the fabric interior of it. It's all leather. But it was all from my head, and I found a guy here locally, Moreno's. I don't think he's doing it anymore. Moreno Custom Upholstery. Anyhow, he did the front and rear seats for me. Everything else I did. So I had my door panels, which I had bought back in '05 when I did it. I bought those from SoFine, but I completely redid those, took them apart, made new door panels because the old ones had kind of gotten a little bit of water onto them, as a lot of them do. And so they were a little warped. So I made new door panels and completely redid the fabric on the door panels, redid the design on them in new fabric, put those together, put them on. I made my own headliner. So again, out of the leather that I did the seats in. So I got a ragtop headliner from, I want to say from Wolfsburg West, but it was just a stock headliner. I ordered one from them, got it here, completely tore it apart, used that as my pattern, laid it out on my leather, sewed it all back together, and then I used Chris Malone's headliner installation videos and walked through that and installed my own headliner, made a leather,
Sweet.
and turned out really good. Yeah, I highly recommend. I don't recommend putting in a headliner because it's a pain in the ass. But but if you're gonna do it, Chris Malone's videos will walk you right through it step by step, and it turned out pretty good. I thought leather
Yeah.
stretch is pretty good, so it was. I'm not gonna say simple, but I like it. And it's a leather headliner. Try and find one of those.
I'm one of those guys that mechanically, I probably would even fail at putting a sticker on straight. Yeah, it's okay, right? It's like I can tinker, but I have no business. It's not my thing. It's
Know where your line is, right?
yeah, man. Like, hey, dude, I
Know
want
when
this
to
to
say
be
when.
dependable. Like, I'm gonna pay somebody, and I'm gonna pay them well to do it. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah. Anyhow, all right. So here's what I want to talk about now,
Yeah,
because how cool,
cover.
man. How does it feel?
Uh,
I've never been on the cover of a magazine. How's it feel
Me either.
I don't know, man, just have that, not just the story, not just the feature, but the cover? Like, damn.
Yeah.
And this magazine,
So
by the way, dude, come on, it's sick. It's sick. It's the sickest
yes.
magazine.
I mean, I could have, if I'd ended up in another magazine, there's no way I was getting 8 pages. No way.
I
I
know. I looked through it.
right?
I'm like, dude, this
I'm
is
like,
so awesome.
8 pages is just awesome, and that's one of the reasons why I love the magazine because you get layouts of the cars. You know, these days hot VWs, VW trends being back now, but they're doing like 2 pages if you're lucky, right? And
If you're
but
lucky. If
yeah,
you're
so
lucky.
that yes, yes. So that one came about because I am a subscriber and I get a printed copy, and Volksmania does a draw for their printed subscribers, to where if your name's drawn, you win some swag. Right? My name was drawn. I got an email about it. I didn't even pay attention to it actually. But Jason Vogan, one of the Volksmania guys who was here in Dallas, in Texas, he messaged me one day and said, "Hey, read your email." I read my email, and it's all, I've got, free swag. Go pick something. So I got a free shirt, and they said, "Hey, when you get the shirt, send us a picture of you with your car, and we'll put it in the magazine." I was like, "Cool. I've never been in a magazine. That's kind of cool." So I sent it to him, and Jill, one of the other editors, messaged me soon after that and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a feature on your car?" Well, hell yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Bring it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, I do tinker with photography. So luckily, I was kind of set, because after we got into it, she was like, Jason could come do it, but he's, an hour away. I think he lives over near Hearst, actually. But he can come take pictures, or if you're handy with the camera. I said, well, actually, I am kind of. So the other guy that's credited with pictures is my middle daughter's boyfriend. So he and I went, and there's a place here in Allen that has some old buildings, and took the car out there and took some pictures and sent those in. And I kind of wrote a history of the car. They credit me with doing the whole story. I got to tell you, somebody cleaned it up a little. So somebody does deserve a little more credit with that story than just me.
Yeah. They're
okay.
great. They're great
Yeah.
to work with. My story, obviously a little different because my angle was a little bit different, but as a subscriber as well, I was finally decided last year by October. So I'm going to start a VW podcast because guys like you guys got stories to tell. We need to talk about them and how cool. So I actually just reached out to them to ask them about pricing for advertising. And Paul Cave got back to me and was like, nah, we ain't going that route. But here's what we will do. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And now I've got, I don't know if you saw in here. I think it's maybe right before.
Yes, I did. I read it.
You see it? Yeah.
After you got in touch with me, I read it. Yep.
So I've got a feature now moving forward in their issues that talks about the podcast episodes. So,
Nice.
Yeah, dude, like, wow. Like, they really do support the VW community. And man, I can't say enough great things about them, for sure.
Yeah, they're great people. But
it's quality.
So we got the story, and then how they tease covers on social media.
Yeah.
So he always teases several different covers on social media.
Right.
So I saw his tease with my car as the front cover, and I was just like, I showed my wife. I was like, babe, I might have gotten the cover. And she was like, really? I was like, babe, I might have got the cover. I was pretty overjoyed. And then to have it actually come to be the cover, it was
pretty dope. I mean, I can hold up your car right here from far away. So that's got to be pretty cool. Can't say it's anything that I've ever experienced, but I
hadn't either. So even as much work as I'd put in the car, I still had never. And Hot VWs, right? The owner of Hot VWs now, Tom Kenny, he's local here in Dallas now. He moved from California here to the Dallas area. He's out at all our shows that we have here locally. I've met him. I talked to him. He and I know each other well enough now to say, hey, Tom, hey, Scott, that kind of stuff. But, I'm not going to sit here and toot my horn and say I'm a friend of his, but I know him enough to see him at shows and know who he is, and he knows who I am. So I still couldn't get Hot VWs to be interested in my car. So, to have Volksmania do it. And
it's so good looking, man. The interior is so sick.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you. For sure.
I'm kind of proud of it.
Yeah.
Still not done. Got more stuff coming, but
always. That'll be forever. All right. Tell me about the Texas Classic Days.
The Texas Classic Days, man, that was the best. That show was just awesome. So it was down in Fredericksburg. Don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a very German town.
Okay.
Real German feel. You can get a glass of wine downtown and walk the street. shopping, carry your wine with you, stop at the next wine place. There's a lot of vineyards down there, so there's a lot of wine places along the way uh, when you're shopping there. But yeah, it's just an awesome little town. The show was fantastic. It was really a weekend of just hanging out, all kinds of VWs in the town, and then the show. And really miss that show. Wish somebody would get that one back together. But I can't imagine the amount of work it is to put on a show. You have yours. Maybe you can reference a little bit about how much work it is to put on a car show. But
it's a lot more than anybody thinks.
Yeah, I bet.
And I mean that. And I'm not saying that to be like discouraging. Like, dude, if you got the time and you can do it, it's rewarding enough, I feel, to see the smiles that you can, bring to one, conglomerate area.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because there's, especially today, there are so many hoops that you have to jump through with legal stuff, especially if you try to do any type of a landmark style, place or feature in a city somewhere, like a pier or something like that. It's like, man, this city gets involved and the pier gets involved and it's like the police are involved and it's so all of a sudden it's like, wow, I didn't realize that there, all of these things had to be think about, and not just that, but planned and have a plan for, and then have a backup plan for. So yeah, it's a lot.
I can't imagine. I mean, there's probably codes for how many urinal or bathroom facilities you got to have, how many
trash cans,
all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
How many
I can't even imagine.
How many cars are allowed, the path that they're going to take to get out to the location that they're going to be at, the fire marshal, all of those, the food vendors have to have certain levels of insurance and then certain clearance from the next one. Yeah, dude. And then all that stuff, they take it serious. So sometimes, they couldn't be inspecting and that type of stuff as well. So you got to have your ducks in a row. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah, I can't even imagine keeping all that straight to be able to get all that in order to put it on. And maybe I don't know. I've never tried, so maybe I could. I don't know.
Oh, you definitely could. You definitely could, man.
It seems like a lot of work.
You could finish college with a degree in electrical engineering, brother. You're all right, dude. You're all right. All right. Tell me this. A lot of folks start projects and don't finish them, right? Whether it's one thing or the next. What do you say? What's advice that you have for somebody who's got a project sitting in their garage right now and they may be discouraged for one reason or another? What advice would you give them?
Quit saying what if or someday I will. Quit doing it. If you, a lot of it comes down to money, I understand. And, I am blessed that my wife and I do make a decent living to where I have enough free income that I can do things like rebuild my car and do it the way I want to. Right. So I understand that. So within your means, though, if you have things you want to do to the car and you keep saying, one day I'm going to do this, one day, quit waiting for that one day. It's that day's going to come and you're still not going to have it done. So that's really what I did with this one, right? It had been sitting after the 2110 broke. It had been sitting for a few years, and I kept just wanting to get a new long block and get it running again. But I always in my head kept going, one day I want to completely redo it. I didn't want to do pan off because, I don't want a trailer queen. I want to drive it. I worry about the paint enough already because, as I found out, paint and body is a lot more expensive than it was back in 1992-ish when I did the 68.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't want to do pan off, but I did want to do a lot of things, right? A lot of things that I'm doing to it and still doing to it. And so I quit saying what if, and I went out and did it and got it done and got it built the way I wanted. Although I'm never finished still, like I said. I quit saying what if, or quit saying one day. Get it done. Try something. At least one step towards your one day.
Hey man,
try it.
That's perfectly sound advice, man. That's great. And that'll probably inspire somebody because that's a pretty common pretty common thing that
Yeah.
happens, right? We're like, well, we don't do this because we overanalyze. And I think that's, certainly different personality types for, different things
Mhm.
like that. But
And different budgets.
and
Different
different
budgets, of
budgets.
course.
We got to consider the
But
budget. Got to consider the budget.
mhm.
I got some fast, quick answer right off the top of the head type things. Just a few questions
All right.
I
Well,
want to poke
let
poke
me let
poke
me
around on. Most underrated VW part or modification that you can make. Underrated.
Where did I go with that? Maybe the least visible thing that you can do, right? And by that I mean a lot of the things I've done on my car, like the split bumpers, the banana bumper guards stand out a little bit more, but a lot of these things people don't even notice, right? And I've gone to all this detail in my car. Like I've got split uh, window and door handles also. Nobody notices. Nobody notices. So in that aspect, I guess I'd have to say those kind of things are underrated. But to me, those kind of details are the key to really making a car stand out to me. So I want to see those details and those different things. But again, that's me being a custom guy too. So
Yeah.
definitely no purist in me. So
Chris Vallone, though very stock as well, had the same thing to
Mhm.
say. It's the little tiny things that you do. It's the placement of the factory sticker, 65 years later, etc. But yeah, man, he touched on a very, very similar thing. So it's interesting to hear you say that. All right, flip side. What's the most overrated VW of all time? Most overrated VW of all time.
Most overrated VW.
Yeah.
I think the most overrated thing to me right now is the big rims. I am just not a big rim fan, especially if people are going to 18s now and things like that.
I've been seeing that. Yeah.
I don't. I don't like that look. 17's already pushing it to me. I like 15s, but
I think 17 is probably the largest that I personally would go myself.
if you want to go to stanced, then no. That to me is totally overrated and ridiculous. I don't know why anybody would, especially drive around that way. But maybe that's showing my age because I am 57. But I know I don't look it like you said.
Awesome. All right, I was going to delete that part for me earlier, but I'm going to leave it now. Dream cruise destination for Sky. Where are you going?
Oh man, it had to be Pacific Coast Highway. Even though I've never been out on the West Coast.
Yeah,
just thinking about driving that from the pictures I've seen, and
it's sick.
Having the windows open and the back window open, wide open, like I have it, and the ragtop open, and just cruising along there. That seems like it would be awesome. So,
one thing every VW owner should do, but most of them don't.
Check your oil.
That's great.
Keep your tunes and keep your carbs tuned.
let's take that one. Check the oil. Because you're right. You're right. Probably super overlooked, man.
Really adjust your valves. That's probably the most overlooked one, is keeping your valves adjusted.
So what's next?
Especially
What's
when
coming
we get
up
into
next
big motors.
for your car? What's next for Sky? Any mods? You said done yet? You got any mods?
I got a box sitting right over there with some heart taillights in it.
Ooh.
So this is next step. Got the hearts and got all the lenses for it. And these are repops, but they're the ones from BBT that are done by the original pressings. So those are all, and I've got all the glass lenses and glass top lens. And
beautiful.
Only problem with that is that my LED lights that I have for my current ones won't fit in this, and I haven't found somebody yet that makes an LED for the hearts. So I may have to go back to regular bulbs. But
there's got to be somebody that makes an LED. Maybe even
I've searched a little bit.
Okay,
not enough yet. Now I've had these for a few months now, so maybe somebody's come up with something.
There's the next $1 million idea, dude. We need to make screens that fit right inside that thing, and they plug into your, we need to do that.
That'd be nice.
Little board. Where can people find you aside from the most recent issue of Volksmania Magazine? You got an Instagram or a Facebook for the car?
Old, I'll show my age. I'm a Facebook person. I post all my projects, everything I do. I put albums out there on Facebook. So
okay.
I do have Instagram also, but I post everything to Facebook. So
well, if somebody wants to check your car out, if somebody wants to check your car out, where can they find you?
You're in Dallas. Driving around.
How about on social media?
Facebook's the most common place. Just search for Scott Pfeiffer. I don't know how you come up with me. You can find me through you. You and I are friends now, so.
Yeah, true. Does Sky have?
No, I never have.
Okay, you've never set up an Instagram for Sky?
No, not one just for the car.
Okay, no, all right.
Never have. Maybe that's me being old too. So.
Okay, any shout outs that you want to give? I noticed you mentioned a couple clubs in your area in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, shout out definitely to my wife for putting up with me with this stuff. I mean, there were a couple years where she didn't see me not much. It took me 2 years to redo it when I redid it this time, and that was a lot of hours in the shop. So shout out to my wife, who's an incredible person. But definitely some of my club friends, Josh Honnell, Elliot Mancille, John Deachman helped me with the banana bumper guards quite a bit, and Marty Cantu, another great guy. All of them, and none of those guys I wouldn't be anywhere in the VW scene without any of those guys.
Good stuff, man. Good shout outs. And that's a wrap for this episode of Dub Life Diaries. Thanks for riding along with us and diving into these incredible stories of the people in the dubs that drive their dreams. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe or hit that follow button so you never miss an adventure. Do you have a story to tell or know somebody else who's living the dub life? Awesome! Reach out to us. You can find us on all socials at Dub Life Diaries, or shoot me an email. I'm not hard to find. dublifediaries@gmail.com. Until next time, keep the engines humming and the wheels turning, and always follow the road that inspires you. This is Joe Person. I'm signing off. I'll catch you on the next ride.